On October 11, 2025, under the cover of night over the Gulf of Mexico, the United States launched a direct strike against a submarine operated by the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Inside, it was packed with over 3 tons of methamphetamine and cocaine. On the black market, that amount of methamphetamine alone was worth nearly $400 million, enough to poison an entire U.S. state. Accompanying the sub were 2 escort boats carrying nearly 25 cartel gunmen. They moved alongside the submarine until it reached its rendezvous point with the Venezuelan cartel, where another network would take over to smuggle the cargo into the United States. They believed the ocean would protect them. They were wrong. From the north, the U.S. Navy patrol vessel Hamilton and 4 Navy RIB assault boats surged through the waves. Overhead, an MH-60S Seahawk helicopter circled low, its GAU-21 heavy machine gun aimed straight at the sea. Would the U.S. task force break this cartel deal, or would they vanish back into the darkness? Let me show you the truth, right now. 2:12 a.m., October 11th, 2025. Gulf of Mexico, 40 nautical miles south of Pensacola, Florida. The Gulf looked like a sheet of glass darkly. During a routine radar scan, the Coast Guard's Area Mobility Command spotted a faint anomaly on its screen. An unidentified moving black dot, traveling at just 6 knots, half submerged. No AIS beacon, no radio contact, just a ghost drifting through U.S. waters. Within minutes, data from a Navy P-8A Poseidon aircraft confirmed it. A low heat signature, an irregular metallic outline, not a fishing boat, not a buoy. Something else, something that shouldn't be so close to U.S. shores. By 2:25 a.m., the command center at Naval Station Pensacola was awake. Intelligence analysts had cross-checked the satellite signals, and what they found froze the room. The object was the size of a narco submarine, a semi-submersible vessel used by the Jalisco New Generation cartel to smuggle drugs, estimated to be 35 feet long, capable of carrying up to 3 tons of cargo. At street value, the amount of methamphetamine and cocaine was worth nearly $400 million, enough to poison an entire state. The bay was calm, moonless, and the radar signals were erratic. Every few seconds, the blip disappeared and reappeared, evidence that the ship was submerged. Someone down there was playing hide-and-seek with the world's most advanced naval force. At 2:40 a.m., Commander Rachel Decker gave the order. Start shadow tracking. 2 ships, the patrol boat USC GC Hamilton, the USS Delbert D. Black, and an MQ-9 Reaper drone, began mapping the route. Every ping, every sonar echo, was a race against stealth. Because if the narco sub slipped below the thermal layer, it would disappear completely. No one on the bridge spoke. Outside, the waves were a still murmur. Somewhere beneath the black water, a billion-dollar secret was approaching America. 3 a.m. The order was given in absolute silence. Watch, do not attack. By 3:12 a.m., the USCGC, Hamilton had switched to passive sonar. Every sound in the ocean was recorded, filtered, and analyzed in real time. Within 6 minutes, the AI detected something unusual, a low-frequency 42 Hz pulse, repeating every 18 seconds. It wasn't a biological pulse. It was a propeller. The narco sub was alive and moving east at 7.4 knots deeper than expected, just 62 feet below the surface, invisible to conventional radar. From the sky, a U.S. Navy MQ-9 Reaper transmitted infrared data every 90 seconds. A ghostly orange trail crawled across the Black Sea, evidence of a hidden engine running at full power. In the operations room at Naval Station Pensacola, the data lit up like a heartbeat. 3 agencies, the U.S. Navy, the Coast Guard Intelligence Agency, and the DEA Maritime Task Force, were now tracking the same moving black dot. What they saw next stunned even the veterans. The sub was not alone. Thermal imaging showed 2 small corvettes carrying 25 cartel soldiers running without lights, keeping a distance in the dark, communicating with the submarine via encrypted radio pulses every 11 minutes. Inside those radio pulses, Analysts detected a response from servers in Maracaibo, Venezuela, confirming the gang's coordination from abroad. At 3:48 a.m., an encrypted satellite signal from the Space-Based Infrared System, SBIRS, detected a camouflaged cargo ship belonging to a notorious Venezuelan drug cartel waiting 90 nautical miles east. Its course matching the submarine's expected intercept point. It was a floating rendezvous point for delivering drugs to the American city. If the narco sub reached that ship, 3 tons of methamphetamine, worth nearly $400 million, would disappear into global trade routes in the form of industrial paint cans. The mission is no longer surveillance. It is a countdown to attack. What do you think? Could the U.S. Navy stop and destroy this entire billion-dollar drug trade right at sea? Comment below. 03:52 a.m. The narco sub surfaced for only 6 seconds, long enough to dump its exhaust. That was all the Navy needed. High above, an MQ-9 Reaper locked its thermal camera on the target, marking a 30-foot-long black shape skimming the waves at 8 knots, low and fast. Commander Rachel Decker's voice came over the encrypted channel, calm, determined, absolute. Execute Phase Delta. The 3 ships moved as one. The USCGC Hamilton accelerated to 28 knots, cutting like a knife through the Gulf. 4 speedboats carrying 60 sailors disembarked, each carrying 8 agents armed with M4 carbines, MK-48 machine guns, and M110 sniper rifles. Overhead, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter swooped in from the east, its headlights streaking white across the Black Sea. For a split second, the crew saw it. A round, dark hull gliding smoothly through the water, spray lapping around the bridge. 4:01 a.m. The chase broke out, but 2 nearby escorts opened fire first. 2 cartel lieutenants rushed out from the ship's porthole, firing Uzi and AK-103 submachine guns into the night. Tracer rounds slashed crimson lines through the darkness. On the Hamilton, Navy gunners returned fire with .50 caliber guns, bursts of fire lighting up the sea like lightning. Above, a Seahawk helicopter banked sharply, its .50 caliber GAU-21 roaring. One of the escorts exploded in a storm of fire and shrapnel and debris that scattered across the waves. 4:07 a.m. On the Arhibs, 12 agents fought against the spray of water as they closed in. They leaped onto the submarine's slippery steel hull, skates on, helmets gleaming in the chaos. "Open them now!" someone shouted. The besieging soldiers blew open the trapdoor. Inside, chaos and chemical fumes, and 2,260 pounds of crystal meth and liquid cocaine, sealed in black industrial bags worth more than $415 million on American streets. The gun battle lasted more than 6 minutes. By the end, 3 smugglers were dead, 5 were captured alive, and 1 American sailor was wounded by shrapnel, but still holding his ground. As the sub crippled, its listless roof blazed, flames spread across the ocean, painting the waves a fiery orange. From the bridge of the Hamilton, Commander Decker spoke softly into the microphone. Even, sure, decisive. Target located. Package secured. And in that moment, only the ocean answered, carrying the last echoes of a billion-dollar empire sinking into the dawn. The gun battle was fierce, but the question is, what will happen when the American soldiers set foot on this giant ship? Let's continue to follow. 05 a.m. Aboard USCGC Hamilton, en route to Pensacola Naval Air Station. The Gulf was still smoldering when the boarding lights came on. What had looked like a crude steel coffin from afar turned out to be a marvel of criminal engineering, a $2.8 million custom-built narco sub, hand-welded in a jungle workshop somewhere along Colombia's Pacific coast. Its entire hull was coated with radar-absorbing paint, the same polymer used on military drones. Every bolt was wrapped in carbon tape to mute sonar echoes. The machine wasn't improvised, it was engineered to disappear. At 5:47 a.m., divers entered through the cracked hatch. The smell of fuel, salt, and burnt chemicals stung the air. Inside the control bay, there were no digital displays, only 3 Soviet-era gauges, a compass, and an improvised throttle. Yet hidden beneath the floorboards, investigators found a lithium-ion battery array weighing nearly 2,000 pounds, enough to power a small submarine for 600 nautical miles without surfacing. Each cell was stamped with Chinese markings. Shenzhen Dynamics Corporation. The deeper they went, the more horrifying it became. Behind a false wall lay the cargo chamber. Sealed steel drums strapped in with nylon belts, still warm from the explosion. Forensics confirmed the payload: 2,240 pounds of methamphetamine and 480 liters of cocaine base. Total street value $417 million. Enough to supply 8.5 million doses, the population of New York City. But the real shock came in the engine compartment. A black box labeled NAV02 was found wired to the control system. A homemade autopilot module connected to an encrypted satellite uplink. The coordinates logged inside showed 2 previous routes from Venezuela to Florida in September, meaning this wasn't the first run. It was the third. By 6 a.m., the crew of the Hamilton stood in silence. The sub wasn't a fluke, it was a prototype, the product of an industrial-scale cartel navy. Intelligence analysts estimated at least 12 identical subs were already in production, each capable of carrying 3 tons of drugs across the Caribbean undetected. When the hatch finally closed, the truth was inescapable. This wasn't a smuggler's craft. It was a weapon. A billion-dollar fleet disguised as shadows built for a war America didn't yet see coming. 8 a.m., October 12, 2025, Pensacola Naval Air Station, Florida. The sun rose over the Gulf like nothing had happened. But the men aboard the USCGC Hamilton knew better. The air still smelled of diesel and burnt salt. The captured narco sub, half-submerged and listing, was now chained to the ship's stern. Silent proof of what had crawled through U.S. waters in the night. At 8:10 a.m., the debrief began inside the operations hangar at Pensacola Naval Air Station. The numbers hit harder than any gunfire. 1 sub destroyed. 2,260 pounds of narcotics seized. Street value: $415 million. Enough to supply over 8 million doses of meth and cocaine. 3 cartel members dead, 5 in custody, and 1 American sailor wounded but alive. But the shock wasn't the battle, it was what came next. When technicians examined the sub's encrypted navigation drive, they uncovered 3 complete route logs, each mapping a different entry point along the Gulf Coast, from Tampa Bay to New Orleans. One log dated September 22, 2025, showed a previous mission that had succeeded undetected. If correct, at least 3 tons of drugs had already slipped into the United States. By 9:15 a.m., the DEA, Naval Intelligence, and Homeland Security convened a joint briefing. Satellite analysis revealed a disturbing pattern. 12 identical narco subs had launched from hidden docks near Puerto La Cruz, Venezuela, under the protection of a cartel branch backed by corrupt military officers. Each vessel cost about $3 million to build, powered by commercial-grade lithium batteries smuggled through China. Together, the network could move up to 40 tons of narcotics per year, a $5 billion pipeline crossing the Caribbean. As the room fell silent, Commander Rachel Decker looked at the wreckage photo projected on the screen. The charred sub, its hull cracked open like bone. "This isn't smuggling anymore," she said. "It's an arms race underwater." That afternoon, the Navy raised alert levels across the Gulf. Patrol flights doubled. Coast Guard cutters repositioned along major shipping routes. Civilian vessels were warned to report any low-profile craft within 200 nautical miles of the U.S. shoreline. But even with the victory, no one on the Hamilton felt relief, because every sailor there knew, for every narco sub caught, another was already being built. And beneath the calm blue surface of the Gulf, the next one was already on its way. October 13, 2025, Gulf of Mexico. By the next morning, the Gulf looked peaceful again. The waves rolled softly under a pale orange sky, and the sea breeze carried no trace of the chaos that had unfolded just a day before. Yet everyone who had been out there knew the quiet was an illusion. Beneath that surface lay the memory of a battle that would never truly fade. The wreck of the narco sub now rested in 60 feet of water, guarded by Navy divers collecting evidence. From above, it looked like a small shadow on the seabed. But what it represented was massive. A $415 million shipment, a link in a network worth billions, and proof that cartels had evolved beyond borders. They were no longer just smugglers. They were engineers, strategists, and financiers of a new kind of war. In Washington, analysts were already briefing Congress. The phrase narco-submarine threat corridor appeared for the first time in official reports. Plans were drawn to fund new surveillance grids across the Gulf. More drones, more sonar stations, more patrols. But every expert in the room knew the truth. Technology could only delay what was already coming. For the sailors of the USCGC Hamilton, victory felt hollow. 1 wounded, 5 prisoners, 3 dead, and a question that none could answer. How many more were still out there? How many nights would end the same way, with fire on the water and silence at dawn? As the ship turned back toward port, Commander Rachel Decker stood on the bridge, watching the horizon. The sea was calm again, almost too calm. She lowered her radio and spoke quietly. Not to her crew, but to the ocean itself. "Let them come," she said. "We'll be waiting." And the waves answered in silence, carrying her words into the deep. If you believe America's strength must never be silenced, then show your support. Like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel, because only together can we keep these untold stories alive.